St. Joseph Cemetery in Pittsfield was established in 1853 to meet the needs of a growing Catholic immigrant population. The cemetery has evolved over the years and more recently received some upgrades that enabled it to ensure the needs of all 4 Pittsfield parishes are met, while also maintaining its beautiful appearance. Steve Kiltonick tells us now what made these renovations possible.
Over the past couple of years, St. Joseph Cemetery in Pittsfield has undergone some major renovations which were made possible in part through the efforts of the Knights of Columbus Eugene Marshall Council 103. The cemetery, which is over 150 years old, is available for all Berkshire Catholic parishes. In 2019, Monsignor Michael Shoshanovich was notified that water was collecting in a corner of the cemetery and raising havoc with the existing grave sites.
There was a ditch in the lower part of the cemetery that used to be cleaned out every year, and the water would run off down there. It hadn't been touched in 20 years because when a former superintendent died, he never told anybody about it.
An old drainage swale, constructed close to 50 years ago, had become completely filled in. A former knight, Phil Janchuk, initially notified Jack LaViolette, previously Council 103's Grand Knight, of the ongoing problem.
He observed water flooding an area in the northeast area of the old part of the cemetery where he had relatives buried. And he asked if anything could be done about it. So we investigated.
LaViolette indicated how high the water actually rose in the corner of the cemetery when it flooded.
The woods was overgrown. It was a thicket like a jungle. And we found remnants of an old drainage swale, like an old drainage ditch.
Monsignor Shoshanovich asked for Council 103's assistance in restoring the original swale. White Engineering designed a plan for the project, and the town's Conservation Commission was contacted for permits. Knight David King, shown here on the far right, documented much of the work from the beginning through photos. For a year and a half, about 12 knights cleared brush and debris. Some volunteered 3 days a week. Leo LaViolette donated the heavy equipment, which included a backhoe and dump truck.
Our brother knights cleared the area, cut the trees, the vines, the brush. We had to chip a lot of the vines and brush and small trees.
After the brush was cleared, Jack LaViolette surveyed the existing swale route, which, according to the engineering design plan, had to be followed exactly.
When we first started clearing, I was out here as much as possible because I had most experience using chainsaws and clearing, so I was sort of out here all the time.
A number of large boulders and trees were encountered during the digging of the trench.
Jack and I took down 20, 30 trees, big monster trees. As we took them down, they'd come in with a payloader and they'd push them over the bank. And we hit one snag. We hit a hornet's nest, and I had to have the payloader put a lot of dirt on it, so that was kind of fun.
The project included restoration work.
I came in towards the end of it, where we cleaned out the basin for the final cleanup for the Conservation Commission, so they could come down and inspect, which required removing of some fallen trees that had fallen into the basin and the hay bales that surrounded the basin.
8 trees that were removed for the swale were also replanted.
The group effort was excellent. They were out here, no matter how hot, fabulous group of guys, fabulous.
I come through here by myself when I come water the trees, and just to walk it makes me feel really good inside. I'm so proud that it looks as good as it does.
The Knights visit the cemetery at least once a year to remove any debris which has fallen into the swale.
But we're going to continue doing this maintenance work as a council project because we put a lot of equity sweat into getting this in the condition it is now, and it works very effectively.
Monsignor Shoshanovich, who said over $1 million was raised for the entire project, is grateful for the Knights.
And they put hours and hours and hours, and they saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if I didn't have the Knights, I don't know where we'd be. We'd still be collecting money on street corners.
Another upgrade at the cemetery involved the St. Michael the Archangel Chapel Mausoleum. Built in 2002, it was the first mausoleum installed in the diocese. At a cemetery commission meeting last year, an anonymous benefactor asked one of its members if they would consider the donation of new stained glass windows. Monsignor Shoshanovich eventually met the benefactor.
And the windows on the top were just plain glass and beautiful little light in, but there was like no ambiance. And she and her husband, that'll be their final resting place. Her husband is there already. And she said, I would like to make a proposal that I put windows in and pay for them. I said, well, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
The proposal included 16 new rectangular windows to be designed by Guarducci Stained Glass Studios of Great Barrington, which has restored and installed many stained glass windows in churches across the diocese.
She wanted something light, to bring a sense of peace and tranquility. And boy, she was right. I guess you should never underestimate a lady's choice,
The project began in August 2021 with small-scale color drawings by owner David Guarducci and craftsman Chuck Woodard. The windows, made primarily out of European-made glass, were completed in March 2022, then framed ahead of their installation in April.
They're kind of abstract, as you can see. It starts like with morning colors, with the sunrise and sunset. It goes all around the mausoleum.
The handcrafted windows were dedicated at the traditional Memorial Day Mass earlier this year. The new windows not only enhance the beauty of the mausoleum, but welcomes all visitors to reflect, meditate, and pray. For Real to Real, I'm Steve Kiltonick.